And then can I ask Melanie, do you want to add anything why you chose here? Yeah.
Yeah, so like my other panelists are saying, um, Cal State Fullerton is local, and that did play a role in me applying to the credential program at Cal State Fullerton. Another thing, and I just want to put it out there, is that when I was applying for teaching jobs, one of the I was told by those who were hiring and in my interviewers that because I graduated from Cal State Fullerton, the credential program there, they said it was very strong. And I knew that I was a strong candidate because I had graduated from that program and got good evaluations. So I just want to say that if you are looking to work here in Orange County, that does play a really it really benefits you to go to Cal State Fullerton's credential program. And likewise, like my experiences there were very positive. I learned a lot, and it is a very strong, well-known program. And the professors, the teachers you meet, to just my whole experience there was really well-rounded. And not only that, I think that was also very honest. They didn't say that teaching is always going to be fun and great. Rather, they gave you the really honest, brutal truth that sometimes teaching can be really hard. and I really enjoy that aspect. And having made those connections, I think I think I did right in choosing Cal State Fullerton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you could actually all hear about why our wonderful panelists chose here Cal State Fullerton Credential Program. And now I'm going to ask you about a little bit about your teaching as a P through 12 teachers. So what are the rewards from choosing to become a P through 12 teachers? Maybe it can be something like favorite thing about being a teacher. What do you think that the reward from choosing to be a teacher? So how about this? Let me ask anyone want to answer to this question first? Maybe Sarah? Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I have been teaching for 8 years now, and I enjoy teaching for Newport Mesa for so many reasons. I think it's split up with Newport Beach and Costa Mesa. So I'm having to work with parents that are litigious and really making sure that when I'm going into IEPs that they're really data driven and that I can just do assessments really well and be part of a really strong like multidisciplinary team. And it's really nice to work and collaborate with speech therapists or speech language pathologists, with occupational therapists. We have like adaptive physical education teachers too that we work closely with, and even with gen ed. So with Newport Beach and Costa Mesa, it's really nice because I can work with kids also that are English language learners. I have a lot of those students in my classroom right now. So, as we're collaborating with speech language pathologists, we're using AAC, and you might come across that in your books, but any forms of communication to encourage the speech and language with our little friends and my classroom is an autism specific classroom. So I have about 10 students in the class right now and 2 aides. But one of the struggles right now is that I only have 1 aide. But just the ratio is very difficult. That's a challenge that I'm dealing with in our district right now, and that we're having to kind of contract out to get more people to come and work for us. But it's such a joy to work with these little guys, because when you have preschoolers, there's some challenges. I think when they're coming out of the assessment center, you're having to support parents really, because a lot of them are either being newly diagnosed. And so just having to talk to parents and having them grieve or go through stages of denial is one part of the job, but also educating parents as well, because some of them receive services through regional center, some of them received no services and just went straight to the assessment center to get brought into our classroom. So autism is fairly new for them, and they're not sure what to do, what route to take, what is an IEP. All the verbiage is so overwhelming. And as preschool teachers, it is rainbows and butterflies. We often get in trouble when we transition them into kindergarten because we built this nice little home for them in preschool. But it's such a joy to work in preschool because we get to go on all these fun field trips like the pumpkin patch, and we're singing all these fun songs. We have a holiday performance coming up where the parents get to come in and we get to sing all these cool Christmas songs. But again, there are a lot of challenges. You're having to introduce like visual schedules for the first time, first thens, token boards, and all of that is fairly new to these little guys. And something as simple as responding to name or following one-step directions are just some of the goals that we have to write for them that they're not really familiar with. So that's just a little umbrella of preschool special ed.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And you could actually all hear about some of the exciting part about being a special education teacher in the preschool setting, right? At the same time, some challenges. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I am going to ask, oh my God, thank you so much for the thumbs up, right? Yeah. And I love this interactivity. Okay. So, and I am going to ask another panelist if you can share anything about the rewards. So what kind of rewards do you think you can choose? Yeah, from choosing to become a P through 12 teacher. So,
I would
Dr.
say,
Al? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say when I think about that question, as far as rewards, I think it has to do like with impact, like, and I take a look at it a couple different ways, like intrinsically and extrinsically, and then inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So like, making the impact inside the classroom, helping students, you can see them grow through the school year. At the beginning of the year, teaching them, seeing them grow academically and personally as a, as a student, seeing them mature because I teach high school. So seeing that growth throughout the year. And then when students do graduate and they come back, it's just the best feeling. Also like inside the building, like working with colleagues, identifying like best teaching practices, how to make the greatest impact in the classroom with the time that we have with the students. Because in high school, like in my specific setting, and we have the students for about 45 minutes. So 45 minutes, 5 days a week. Like what we think about when we get into groups of teachers to talk about best practices is like, what can we do with that time to make the greatest impact for student learning, and then I think about like, okay, how do I feel about that intrinsically, like the rewards of like helping people? Because I knew that getting into this profession, it was something I wanted to do because I've always wanted to help other people, in some sort of way. So that's like just the way I grew up, because I've done a lot of community service and activism and, advocacy. So being a teacher, like I can see the impact going into my classroom, and that's fulfilling for me. Extrinsically, like, some of the rewards, well, you get a paycheck for doing something that I love, going in there, educating kids, and working with other teachers. I would also say like, so that's like inside the classroom. Outside of the classroom, I have some experiences that I'd like to share. Like I participated in national policies. Like I participated in Global Learning Fellowship, where I went international to learn about different educational systems. I went to China. I participated in national policy fellowship. So I've been to Sacramento, talked to people on the Hill, been to Washington, D.C., talked to people on the Hill about, advocating for teacher diversity, teacher shortage, social emotional learning. So it's just like, there are a lot of different avenues you can take going into P12 as a teacher, because what some people might see is you go into, teaching, and then some people might just see like, okay, I'm there 8 to 3 doing my thing. And that's not the case, because your voice as an educator matters. You're the expert. Once you have that credential, you're a professional. You hold that piece of paper. So what you hold that piece of paper, that means that you completed this rigorous program, especially from Cal State Fullerton. It's an accredited program, right? And you're the expert voice in the room when it comes to education. And like I mentioned, when I do advocacy outside, when they ask about teacher issues, what you may see at times is they're going to ask politicians that aren't teachers. So when you have that space, like your voice and experience really does matter. So that's what I wanted to share about the rewards of being a P12 educator.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Al Rabanera, and just shared actually a lot of reward, right? Inside and outside, right? So thank you so much for sharing your in-depth experiences. And I want to ask now, Melody, if you can share a little bit about what would you say the reward, yeah, from choosing to become a teacher? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was drawn to teaching. Sorry, like I said, I'm a little sick. I think the rewards of teaching really do boil down to being the everyday memories that you form with students and the humor that kind of comes about with that. I do work in a middle school, so I do work with 7th and 8th graders. And as I hear a lot, and I'm sure maybe you've experienced the same, middle school is a very interesting time in a child's life. Um, the other day, students were throwing airplanes across the room, and I got a little frustrated, but at the same time, I kind of laughed because that's part of their experience, is being able to have fun, because that's what they want to do, is to have fun, and I have to bring in that opportunity for them. So in addition to just being able to work with students every day, it's also my staff. I am very lucky and very fortunate that the teachers that I work with, and instructional aides, my administration, the speech language pathologist, psychologists, counselors, everybody on my school site is there with the mindset that we are there to support students. And I'm very lucky in that when I come to work, everybody shares that mindset. And I think that's so important for me to be able to grow as an educator and as a person in a place like that. Because without a strong team, I wouldn't be as strong of a teacher. And I think that being a science teacher is very interesting, because there's a huge push to do hands-on activities to kind of know what you're doing every day. And I think that's kind of the struggle of being a teacher. When you're brand new, especially, there is that perfectionist mindset to say, I need to do something hands-on, exciting, engaging, and fun every single day. And being in a team of about 9-10 teachers, everyone says, you don't really have to do that every day. Here's something else that's maybe a little more low key, but still as engaging. And again, without the strong staff, without students that check in with me and I check with them and with them, without students who want to be there, I don't think I would enjoy teaching as much as I do. Yeah, but I think in addition to all of that, it's also my ability to grow as a person, I think is a really nice, maybe side effect or nice consequence. I'm searching for a word, but I think you all know what I mean. That's also come along with teaching, being kind of feel like I'm growing as a person too. And it's all kind of just enmeshed in there. Yeah. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, of course, absolutely. So thank you so much for all your answers. And then I think actually all of you could actually hear some examples, right? Actually, not just one, not just two, many different examples. Yeah, from our preschool teacher, preschool and special education teacher, middle school and high school, right? So being a teacher, there are many, many, many rewards that you can think about. But I remember that both Sarah and Melody shared a little bit about the challenges of being a teacher too. So I want to ask you now a little bit more about those challenges. So if you can add more, and Dr. Al Rabanero, you can add more this later too. So my next question will be about those challenges. What were some challenges you faced? So how about this? So let me ask you some challenges about your teaching first, okay? So because you shared some experiences about challenges in teaching, and so is there anyone who can share about some challenges you have now as a teacher, even though you have even though you have a lot of viewers, if you want to expand a little bit more about this, yeah. So you're teaching, yeah. In your current position, yeah, just one or two person. Anyone who'd like to volunteer? Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
I'm the first one. Sorry. I think for the credential program, I think like many of you, one of the hardest things was we had the option, like 2 routes where you can go to the credential program part-time and it would just be a longer route, or you'd go to the credential full-time and not work, have time to work, right? So I did the full-time, and that was a really big struggle. I would assume, just like many of you, is just not being able to work, not having any income coming in, literally the cup of noodles lifestyle of like college life. So that was pretty much it. That was one of the biggest challenges, is just making, on like social media, looking at all my friends enjoying their lives and going on all these like vacations and parties while I'm here like writing papers and doing all these things. That was probably one of the hardest things for me. That journey of going through the credential program, if I'm being really honest. But it was such a great journey to be part of the cohort and the program, and just meeting so many great individuals that I'm still in contact with till this day. So, and then in regards to teaching, I think one of the hardest things for preschool special ed is that there's so many little friends that are coming through the assessment center right now, and there's just not enough classrooms. And so our classrooms and our programs are getting kind of impacted, and the ratio is just not there. We would have 3 adults to 10 kids maybe, but it's starting to look like 3 adults to 12 to 15. And if you can imagine a classroom of preschoolers, that like 15 kids in one class is kind of overwhelming. So a solution for that would be to obviously open up more classrooms, and that would be really helpful, because just having a smaller group, there's just more instructional control, and we're able to target so many more things in regards to their IEP and their goals much better. But that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I'm dealing with right now in our district.
Thank you so much for sharing about, actually both as a teacher, right? Actually, your challenges that you're facing right now as a teacher, at the same time, some of your challenges you had while you are going through our credential program. So I want to ask the same question to other panelists. Yeah, is there any challenges that you'd like to share with us? When you went throughout our credential program, plus, yeah, what you're doing as a teacher right now, do you face any challenges? So if you can answer to those, expand a little bit more about the challenges that you have and your credential program. Yeah, that's going to be wonderful. So who wants to go first? Yeah.
I can go. So
Thank you.
When I attended the credential program, like I previously mentioned, it was a 2-semester program. My second semester, I was actually offered a job to teach. So the second semester, if you're familiar with the program, is a student teaching semester. So I just got, placed. So I didn't have any experience. I substituted a little bit in a couple of districts. I had done tutoring. But what I really enjoyed about the program and the support that I got from Cal State Fullerton was we were meeting weekly and talking with, my colleagues about what's happening and what they're doing, so I could identify best practices. Like I mentioned, I was enrolled in the foundational level math program. So it was like lower level math. And we were just exchanging different ideas. And it was really helpful just to be in a group, of educators that are experiencing the same thing. Because when you enter into a district, they're going to give you a mentor and then, help you through the process. But then, the mentors have been in education for quite some time, and they're not experiencing what you're experiencing for the first time. I would say that Cal State Fullerton really helped me through the early stages of my career. And then some of the challenges, that I faced when I was, beginning as a teacher was that I always wanted everything to be perfect, and that's not going to happen. Like, it's going to take some time to perfect your craft. What I would really encourage you to do is, reach out to the center, and ask a lot of questions, about like the different resources that they have available. And even when you move into the credential program, I would say continue to be curious about teaching and ask a lot of questions, because there's a lot of educators that are there to help you like move forward in the profession, especially now, right? Because if you take a look at the state of education right now, there's a shortage. So say you're applying into the program at Cal State Fullerton and you're applying into a school district, right, to either substitute teach or go in as emergency credential, because that's what I did, and you get hired. Like, what a perfect opportunity for you to get experience along with, continuing to complete your credential at Cal State Fullerton. Because I would say it's like one of the best programs around, and if you're already currently there, you're familiar with the campus. I would also say, like, in the profession, some of the challenges that I faced would be just knowing when to say, that's where I'm going to stop working for today, because you always want to put your best foot forward. And then something that you really need to think about is how you're taking care of yourself, right? All of us have gone through the pandemic, surviving through the pandemic. Like, you just have to check in with yourself, and be real mindful about what you're doing and making sure your energy is still there. Because if you have to be able to take care of yourself first before you can take care of others.
Thank you so much. And then you could hear some challenges, but at the same time, how he navigated through our program, right? And then credential program. And he also provided some advice, right? Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to ask Melody if you can share a little bit more about if you had any challenges or like in terms of teaching and when you went through the credential program here. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I'll start with my challenges in the credential program. So, as I was saying, the credential program is well-rounded and is very strong. I think my challenge, personally, just speaking from a very personal perspective, is not having my own classroom. When you're in the credential program, there is, as Dr. Al was saying, there is a portion in which you are student teaching and you are working in classroom, and there's, I believe, a time period of from what I remember, like maybe let's just say about a month in which you're supposed to like take over that classroom. So you're teaching the whole day. And you are, of course, paired with another teacher who is credentialed, and that is your classroom, and you're working within the confines of that classroom. Well, the difficulty for me was that it wasn't my own classroom. So I never felt completely 100% confident. And that wasn't necessarily the teacher's fault. It wasn't their fault at all. It was just, I didn't feel like it was my own space. And that was really hard for me to grapple with. And I was told again and again, like, you're going to feel so much more confident when you have your own classroom. And the way that you're feeling right now is temporary. And that was completely true. Because once I got my own classroom, once I started making my own, decorating the walls, making my own classroom rules, it all just kind of fell into place. And so I really what I want to tell and share with you is that if you're thinking of going to the credential program at Cal State Fullerton, or let's say you move and then you have to go to credential program, Ohio or Idaho, I don't know. Anyways, when you're student teaching, and if you feel like I can't do this, I'm not enough, don't trust that, because you're not really going to know until you have your own classroom. And just trust me on this 200%. You've got to give it some time, because the way that you feel, you have to do so many things. You have to teach, you have to write all these like reports, these long lesson plans, and then you're being evaluated constantly. And it feels like there's someone looking over your shoulder all the time. And it's very, very stressful. And I just want to put it out there. Like, don't trust that feeling. Just once you get into your own classroom, it's going to feel so much better. Yes, you will be a new teacher, and there's always pressure with being a new teacher. But that feeling of somebody looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, you can't do this anymore, it's going to start to trickle away because you're there. You are a teacher, and this is your own classroom, and you get to make it your own. So with that being said, the challenges of teaching, I think there's two ways to look at this question because it is a very big question. A lot of the challenges, what I feel personally is a lot of things are out of my hand. There's some students I just can't do anything for because it's not up to me. And I don't want to say anything that would hinge on the privacy of those particular students. So all I'm going to say is, like I was saying, there are politicians who make decisions and they've never been in a teacher before. They've never stepped into a classroom before other than when they were a student, and they don't know what's going on in your classroom, and they make all these decisions, and you just kind of sit at your desk. And at least speaking for myself, I sit there and I think, why can't I do anything for this particular student because it's not up to me. For example, like school supplies, having a lot of school supply, how do I put this? I wish that every teacher had like a limited amount of school supplies, and I speak for myself, I don't. And that the amount of school supplies that you're given is dependent on policy, and it's not dependent on like your school site. If that makes any sense. It's just, there feels like there's so many things that's out of my control. And so a lot of those challenges sometimes largely depend on those policies and sometimes also depend on school site. My challenges personally, I think sometimes it'll have to do with my students. I do work with if I put about there, a high needs population of students in which 99% of our students, about that range, are on free and reduced lunch. Some of my students are in foster care. Large amount of our population, just put it that way, I work with a high needs population in which they have a lot going on at home, and I have to be able to provide social emotional skills, or I have to use my social emotional skills a lot more. And they're thinking a lot more than their grades. They're thinking, do I have food at home? They're thinking, when I get home and is it going to be safe? Do I have a safe place to sleep tonight? And that, again, largely plays into how I teach and largely plays into how I interact with students. Anyway, it's always a very long-winded response, but yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much. No, that absolutely answers the question. And then I think all of you could actually hear from our panelists, there are some challenges, there are many rewards, right? And then you could hear from us actually the challenges that even though that teachers have, you can actually hear from our panelists that our teachers are working hard to make things work, right? And then they work hard for our students. And that's the reason why we can say that our teachers here, you guys, are our activists. They are activists at the same time, they're advocates. So you are changing life of our students, right? So it's such a rewarding job. So what I want to ask you now is, I can kind of hear that many of our panelists already share some of the advice, such as, like Melody shared about student teaching, right? Actually, so she shared about some challenges. At the same time, you may feel this way, but don't let you down, right? Over this feeling. And I remember hearing, Dr. Al Rabanera saying that look for resources, right? Try to stop by the centers and then you are going to get help. So I know that you already shared some advices. Nevertheless, I want to ask you if you have any additional advice you'd like to share with our future candidates. So can I open up these questions maybe? Yeah, anyone can volunteer to answer first. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What I would say is to get involved. Some of you are already involved in Titan Future Teacher. right? I would say look for different ways to get involved also, because you don't know what you don't know. If I knew what I knew now, I would be doing advocacy and a lot earlier, because there's a lot of things that you can get involved in, and your voice does matter as a pre-service, pre-service candidate, like because you're an undergrad and you're still like, you're interested in a career in teaching. Like, I would say try all of the different levels. Like, say you think, you want to be an elementary school teacher, go substitute in a district that has elementary school. You're going to be in there with students for 6.5 hours, right? Maybe that's, something that you're really interested in doing. But how would you know if you want to be an elementary school teacher versus a junior high teacher versus a high school teacher, right? Junior high class is probably about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, high school anywhere from like 50 to an hour, right? And then also, if you're an elementary school teacher, like, you have a multiple subject credential, like you would have to know all of the different subjects versus like a single subject credential where you're going to be an expert in one specific field. I think, you have to see what you really are passionate about before you decide. I would say also, like, if you are interested in the different programs like STEAM, STEM programs, I would say check out the center, right? See what different opportunities they have to intern or volunteer, because there are various programs there. And then I'm not sure currently it's at the center. Maybe you could talk about it a little bit, Jennifer. Like, there's what I've seen previously is there's scholarships or grants available to students for participating in those programs, right? Because how do you know if you're interested in it if you never try it? And then also it helps you as you apply into the program, because the center's more familiar with you, and then when you move into the profession, it'll separate you, and you'll stand out as a potential somebody, a potential new hire to that district. I would say just be very open to the different types of programs and the different opportunities, because through those like one opportunity might lead to another, and then all of a sudden you're in a different space that you would never have thought you would be in. I could give you like a couple examples. Like, I was interested in professional development, professional learning, basically training teachers, and then I got moved into a space where I was putting together a program that focused on teacher diversity and recruitment and retention. So it moved me into that space, and then it moved me into a policy space where now I'm able to speak about professional learning and professional development, teacher diversity, recruitment and retention. And then now I'm in a space where I get to speak about it to policymakers and the impacts it makes for the state and federal policy. So I would say just be very open, to listening. And then if it's something you're interested in, I would say just continue to connect back to the center.
Thank you so much. And right, you need to get involved. And I am going to ask Jennifer later, once all the panelists are going to be done sharing about their advice, if you can share a little bit more about, yes, how they can be more involved and be connected to the Center for Careers in Teaching. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you later. So how about this? Let me go back to the question about the advice you have. So is there any other panelists want to share any advice you might have to share with future candidates?
I can piggyback or go.
Okay.
Go ahead,
You want to go,
Sarah.
Melanie, first? Yeah, of course.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. So maybe a couple things. The first one, as Al was saying, is to get as much experience as you can and be open to all opportunities that come to you. The more experience you can, the more experience you can gain, the stronger your resume will be. I think once you graduate from the teacher credential program, I think if you don't get a teaching position when you first come out, which happens a lot, and it's actually very rare to get a get a teaching position right after you graduate is to get a long-term substitute teaching position. Getting a long-term teaching position enables you to be at one school site for a long period of time, number one. Number two, if you do a good job, if you were to ask the principal to come and shadow you, and the principal says, hey, you did a really good job, they might be really open to writing a letter of recommendation, which is what I did. And that's how I got my teaching position now. Anyways, so that's what really, that's one advice I'd have, one suggestion I would have. Another one is to be open to teaching outside of Orange County. And apply everywhere you can. Apply to LA, apply maybe even out of state, apply NorCal, apply Inland Empire, or just apply. And you cannot apply to enough districts, because the more you apply, the more experience you're going to gain in interviews. And then when you get the interview you really, really want, then you're going to just be in stronger footing, because you don't want to limit yourself, especially when you first get out. And your professors are going to tell you this when you're in the teaching credential program, like to apply everywhere. But I really, really mean it. As a teaching candidate, like when I was a candidate, that's what I did. I just applied everywhere. I applied, I think I applied like NorCal, and I was thinking to myself, okay, if I have to, I'll work there. Okay. Because I want that experience. And then later on, I'll go back to Orange County because that's where I want to settle down. And luckily I did get a position in Orange County, which was lucky for me, but sometimes you can't. And a lot of times that's not because you're not a strong candidate. Sometimes it's because there's just not enough teaching positions open in that district or in that area. So again, I really want to encourage you just to keep going and not to give up.
Thank you so much. So you need to open to opportunities, right? Yeah. And then I'm going to ask Sarah if you have any advice that you want to add.
I'm just going to piggyback off of both of them. I'm like slowly taking notes. I kind of wanted to go back to what Al was saying, that as a teacher, we didn't go into this position trying to earn so much money. We literally are doing this, out of our heart. We just want to help people. And like he said, we're always clocking in those hours. I don't know how many nights and weekends I've been at school, just doing whatever I can to improve my classroom, and just really taking care of yourself is the number one thing. And obviously asking for help, and what they're both saying is just exposure. Just try your best. I really love the idea. That's what I did, was I applied for an emergency credential, and I was subbing in our district as well. So that was a great way for me to get my foot in the door, really build those relations with autism specialist or with the principal, and they were able to write me a letter of recommendation, and I was able to get into Newport Mesa just like that. So it's so important for you to build these relationships, and you will come across, one of the challenges is that working with children, it's very difficult enough, but when you're working with adults, it's a whole other it's a whole other thing, right? Because you're going to be coming across so many other teachers and so many specialists that might have a difference in opinion with you, and it will be challenging, but don't burn bridges. Try to maintain that professionalism, and just try to stay in contact with everyone that you do work with, because you never know, later on down the line, they might be someone very important that you might need to pretty much kiss their ass, right? So you really do need to maintain that professionalism with everyone. And just kind of going back to what Melody was saying about the fact that we don't get a lot of funding as teachers, unfortunately. So there's so many, not to deter you, but there's so many opportunities where you can write grants. I've written like 1,000 grants, and I got iPads for my classroom. I got so many manipulatives for my kids. So that's something that you can consider when you're becoming a teacher. I was very savvy, went to Dollar Tree 99-cent store and just bought a bunch of stuff, and hit up all my friends that had a bunch of kids in their life and said, whatever you don't want, I will take all your toys. Please donate them to my classroom. So, stay in contact, and reach out to your friends and families that have cousins or kids, or, and you can try to volunteer in their classrooms. And as teachers, we always appreciate volunteers, and any little thing can help. Obviously, there's a lot of COVID protocols now. You might not be able to volunteer in the classroom, and just ask the school what their guidelines are. But if it's something as simple as, I don't mind if there's something that you need help with prepping, I could bring it home, prep it at home, just give me the materials, or I'll go get the materials and I'll bring it back to your classroom. Here's 25 prepped crafts or whatever it is. Like, that's a great way for you to be involved in the community. Just go on their Instagram, look at their PTA. How are they being involved in their community? We are always like hosting luncheons or skate nights, or whatever it is, just to involve everyone. And I'd say that's your best bet at just getting involved in your community and your school district, and just really making a name for yourself. And so people start recognizing your face and being familiarized with you is probably my best piece of advice with that.
Thank you so much. And then you could hear many different advices, right? And then, to be honest, I'm not sure if I can say it, right? Yeah. But that reminds me of my own teaching experiences too. So now I can reflect back how I did. Yeah. And then a lot of your advice, really, that's something that I did too. Before I became a teacher, I want to get involved in communities and in the classroom. And then many of you could hear my own journey of being a teacher, right? So I am here. When I first came here, I came here as an international student. So I was not really confident in speaking in English either. So I started working and volunteering from Korean school, where I feel more comfortable too. I started there. I also worked as a nanny because I want to learn how kids talk. I want to learn. I went to volunteers. I look for opportunities, and that really helped me to become a teacher, and that still helps me when I'm teaching here at Cal State Fullerton. So thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful advices. And I want to ask Jennifer if you can share a little bit about our Center for Careers in Teaching, because I remember that Dr. R. Rabanera talked a little bit about being involved, and his advice was get in touch with our center. So if you can briefly share about the center, that's going to be great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you so much for the plug, actually. So there's a lot to know about becoming a teacher, and you don't have to do it alone. We're at the Center for Careers in Teaching. We help you navigate what those preparation requirements are for our admission requirements to get into the credential program, but state requirements as well. And so, they shared such great advice. A lot of the things that we talk about with students too, about high need areas like STEM and special ed, and how you can do things to, take those steps to get into the credential program in those areas, and the types of scholarships too that are available when it's time to apply for the credential program. There's a lot of scholarships for College of Ed students, specifically for College of Ed students that go unapplied for, but they're there. So there's a lot of resources that we're here to help you navigate. So definitely come find us. We're open. It's actually a study space. So if you ever need a place to study too, we're in EC 379. That's the Education Classroom building on the 3rd floor. And you can make appointments with us on TitanNet. And I also want to note that we have someone here actually to speak about recruiting students of color for STEM. So I want to give them their opportunity to speak. And also, before she does that, I also want to put a link for a survey in the chat, because we want to get your feedback about these panels that we've been holding for Ed Week. We're going to pick a winner too. So whoever fills out the survey will be entered into a chance to win AirPods. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. So it's very short. Please let us know how you feel about these panels. We want to keep them going. And I think Malika is here, and I want to give her chance to talk about her program. Are you ready to do that?
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
It's so great to hear from the teachers. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your experiences. I'm a coordinator of a Future STEM Teachers of Color Fellowship Program that will be running in the spring semester for undergraduates. I encourage anyone who's interested in possibly being a STEM teacher to apply. I'm going to drop our flyer in the chat. And it's a program for people who are interested in STEM teaching, who identify as students of color, and who are also interested in some way in thinking about issues of justice in STEM education. It's a great place to get connected with other students and to explore a little bit more about teaching and get to know faculty of color more in depth. So thanks for letting me share, and I encourage you to apply if you want. I'll put the flyer in the chat.
Thank you so much. So I think we have, any more question, and then it's about time to finish. So I want to take a moment to thank you for joining us, and I want to say thank you for our wonderful panelists. And I want to really share with you research has shown that students benefit when they have a teacher who share a similar identity like them, right? So as a teacher, as an Asian Pacific Islanders, and you can make an impact the life of our students. And then we need a teacher like you, right? And that's why I really am appreciative of our panelists to share how they went through our credential program here at Cal State Fullerton, and the best moment, right? Rewards, and at the same time, some challenges. And thank you so much for sharing many different ways how our future candidate can navigate through their credential program and careers by sharing many advices. And I want to give you actually one big applause. Yeah, if you can. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining. And one last thing, please don't forget to fill out the survey that Jennifer just actually had in the chat. Yeah, if you need, I think Jennifer, you can have one more time to place the chat link in the chat, right? Yeah. So she's going to have one more time, but thank you so much for joining, and I appreciate so much for your time. Thank you again. I hope to see you in the near future at Cal State Fullerton. Thank you.